welcome to Hak5, Season 2, Episode 9. I'm your host, Darren.
I'm Wes.
And this month we have a very special episode.
Yes, we went up to Washington, D.C. to ShmooCon. And it was really cool. There was a lot of informative talks there. Couple of things they talked about might land you behind bars.
Not like these, though. These are the playground bars in the new house place.
Yes.
Doing good.
But you might want to get a bag of popcorn or something right now and gather around the family, because since it is a special on ShmooCon, and there's so much to cover,
it's kind of long.
It's pretty long.
Yeah. But we'll see you on the other side right after we talk to Bruce Potter, who we asked all about ShmooCon.
So basically the Shmoo group, which runs ShmooCon, was something that I founded back when I lived in Anchorage, Alaska in like 99 or so. And it was really formed out of the idea that I had 10 or 12 friends who were all kind of doing security work, and we were all kind of into the same thing, and we wanted to do more as a group than we could do as individuals. So, you know, as I was in the community, I'd meet more people that did security. I would grab them and say, hey, you want to come join this group? And, you know, it wasn't for profit, it wasn't a company, it was more like, we got cool projects, we're running a website, we're doing all this stuff, and we'd like to have people involved. And so it started out mostly as this group of folks in Anchorage. Our initial projects, we had a couple of open source tools. We had lookup information for, like, you know, RFC lookups. And we're just writing random CGIs and that kind of thing.
Right.
And massive archive of, like, bug track and all these other security lists, and hosted on the end of, like, 128K circuit in Anchorage. So it was really slow, but, like, Alta Vista found it, and, like, then suddenly, like, we were, like, for a while, the authoritative archive of bug track. And
wow.
So this is constantly, the pipe was always filled. But over time, a lot of us kind of scattered to the wind. Some of the Shmoo went to Seattle and the Bay Area. Heidi and myself and her family moved down to Virginia at the time, and then we just kind of continued to grow as we met more people, and so, you know, people found out about the group because we would go to DEF CON and talk, and we were working on books, and we go to other conferences and that kind of thing.
The whole general, like, geek networking type.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just what happens normally. Just we had an umbrella to throw it under, and all it is a mailing list. You know, it's a mailman mailing list, runs on a server. You know, if you get added to the list, you're in the group. You know, that's as complicated as it is. And so there's about 35 members total now, 25 or so that are actually active on a regular basis. And so after, you know, a number of years that we're together, you know, we go to these conferences and we'd be like, man, we could put on one of these, we could do this, and it'd be fun, you know. It was like, you know, we saw things we wanted to do differently, we had ideas on things we wanted to do, period, and we said, hey, let's try this. And eventually, after enough, you know, you sit around the bar and have those kind of conversations, something eventually comes of it. So Beetle, at the time, who was a member of the Shmoo group and helping out, you know, with some of the projects, said, hey, you know, I'll take this on and see what I can make happen. And so for a few months, he kind of was just doing things we weren't really aware, and then suddenly he's like, here's the date, I got the hotel, I got everything lined up, and we're all like, holy cow. And so then Heidi helped him out quite a bit in the first year, and they basically, between the two of them, gathered up all these volunteers and handled all the logistics and made it happen. And so the goal, I mean, it's what's on the website is we want to make it different, accessible, affordable, and entertaining. You know, we want to be able to provide a forum where people can come and try to talk about security issues, talk about kind of related issues around computer security in a way that's not really polluted by vendors, and hopefully is not polluted by kind of the think that's been in the community for a while. You know, the security industry has evolved over time, and I think there are some things that may have been true 5 years ago that aren't true anymore, and we need to be able to deal with that. So our goal is to kind of you know, build a conference that allowed for that kind of honest and open discussion, and not cost $2,000, but, you know, still have
arm and a leg, and still have a lot of the whole lot of fun that comes with our kind of community.
Right, absolutely.
Just the whole social event and everything else.
Yeah. So we you know, had the first conference, and it was apparently very successful. We sold out. We do limited attendance because this is all, we run it on a cost recovery basis. Again, we're not trying to make money on this. We're just trying to give to the community. So we have to have this line of how much can we charge, and how big can we be, and what is our personal liability in it, because if we screw up, it comes out of our own pockets, not everybody else's. So you know, we sold out at 350 folks or so, and it was very successful. There are certainly some rough edges, you know, but we had an idea to try to be as transparent as we could, so we ran one of the talk sessions was this, called it Own the Con, and it was, here's all our financial information, everything we did right, everything we did wrong, so that other people can go and try and learn from that. And I think people came to respect, like, hey, this seems like they are trying to be honest with us, and they're trying to do it. And I think it helped that with 25 active members in the group, you know, they told 10 of their friends, basically, and that populates the entire conference. You get 350 people without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
so
they tell two friends.
Yeah,
they tell two friends.
Exactly. And so for the next year, we grew pretty substantially in size, but and we sold out again very quickly, and we continued to try to be as transparent as we could. And this year again, same thing. We grew, sold out. Just the cycle seems to be repeating itself. But I think overall, it's been a good experiment. We've done things I don't think that other conferences would be willing to do, either because they take a financial risk or they take some kind of reputation risk, that we're willing to go out on a limb and say, hey, we're going to try to do this because we think it's for the good of the community, and it might make things better. So
I think that's definitely one of the big things that sets Shmoo apart from a lot of those other conferences. We attended Hope, and it was kind of cool, but then that was the first con I've actually ever been to. I got into the scene really late, and then now that I'm here at Shmoo, you guys have done a wonderful job with it. It's all really well organized. The speakers are pretty eloquent in what they're talking about, and if you want to call shenanigans on them, I love the Shmoo ball.
Right. Yeah, so that was, we used to go to these conferences and people would just say, 1 and 1 is 3. I swear, they would just say things like that and people would write it down, and you're like, if you're paying $2,000 to attend a conference and somebody says 1 and 1 is 3, part of your brain wants to believe it. It wants to believe it real bad because you don't want to think you're wasting your money.
Exactly.
And so the Shmoo ball was a way to get people armed with some kind of physical manifestation of a bullshit flag, that you could just throw it at the guy on stage and say, I don't agree, and maybe you said it or maybe you just threw it and everyone else would throw them too because, it was just imminent that the guy wasn't saying something that was right.
Because you'd mentioned, you were talking about it before in the opening comments, where it takes a big set to stand up in front of somebody and be like, no, I disagree. But with the physical manifestation of the Shmoo ball, you can just sit back, anonymously whip it.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be like in high school again, where you're like wreaking havoc in study hall. You just, nothing. It was me, man.
Yeah,
so it's the guy behind me.
Over there.
So no, I think it's worked out, and I think every year we get more people here who are used to that kind of attitude. So I think the discussion year over year has gotten better as people realize that they can be free to come here and talk to the speakers and engage them. And I think the speakers are comfortable with not letting themselves get too far afield of their normal talk. If you get someone who's just saying random crap, you kind of steer away from them. It's okay.
I got to go over here. And so where does the Shmoo group see Shmoo going?
As far as where ShmooCon's going, so we try to make a delineation between the Shmoo group and ShmooCon. We figure ShmooCon's one of our most visible projects, but we continue to try to do other things. And where the Shmoo group is going, I have no idea. It's just a year-to-year adventure as far as we can tell. I'd like to, and I think Heidi and I talk about this a lot with the rest of the group, which is, how big do we think we want to get? Do we want to get any bigger even from where we are today? Are there any other ways to impact the community in a positive way that isn't just this conference? Because the problem is we're going to become a victim of our own success at some point, where if we continue to grow, I think that was your mic.
Yeah, it was.
This probably gets edited out at some point. I can make little moose antlers and things. So anyway, we're going to become a victim of our own successes. If we get to be, 1,500 or whatever people, there's going to be some breaking point where people say, this isn't the cozy environment that I knew. It's just kind of this big whatever anymore, and it's not as cool as it used to be. And for us, it'll be not fun. You get 2,000 people, 3,000 people, and a bunch of volunteers supporting them. They're going to be like, I don't want to do this. I'd like to see us get, this is my personal opinion. I think there's going to be different opinions in the group. I think we can probably be a little bit bigger than we are, but I think the limited attendance thing is good for us. It's good for the people that attend because it gives them the best experience possible. But I really like to see us focus on outreach more and our ability to impact other conferences and other parts of the community in a positive way, so that people don't feel like they need to necessarily come to ShmooCon, and they can go to something else and get the same kind of information flow and participate like they can participate here. If someone else is wildly successful because we were able to arm them and make them successful, I think that's important to us, just as important, if not more so, than getting attendees here and having this conference.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's kind of like how we feel about what we do. Is we don't want it to not be fun, and we want to be able to help everybody else out too. So, granted, two different things, huge different scale, but same basic principles. So.
And I think that altruism is good to have in the community, because I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of money in play right now, for right or wrong. I mean, there's a business around security, and so a lot of people are going to have different motivations. And thankfully, the way I used to describe the Shmoo group is we're a bunch of security geeks with disposable income that can go and do all these projects and aren't expecting any return on the investment because we want to do the right thing.
Right.
And so now we're geeks with a fair bit of disposable income because the conference allows us to year over year reinvest in the conference, and I think that puts us in a unique perspective to be able to do things that are still altruistic in nature, and potentially provide a venue that if people believe that they're no longer altruistic or way off the rails, they'll tell us, and they'll tell us honestly, like, we don't believe in what you're doing anymore. Well, fantastic, then tell us that, and either we'll try to fix it or maybe we'll become obsolete. So
that's cool. So for anybody that happens to not know about Shmoo Group or ShmooCon, where can they go find out some information? You
can find out more information about ShmooCon at www.shmoocon.org. That's ShmooCon. So note, it's not like school, so there's no SCH, which is what everybody wants to say. It's SHMOO. And to find out more about the group, you can go to shmoo.com and learn more there. And on the shmoocon.org website, we'll have all the talks from this year, both in slide form and video form, free for download. Videos should be up at some point.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. And where did Shmoo come from?
So Shmoo came from, there was a guy who worked with me and a bunch of the other Shmoo members at Internet Alaska, and where we all worked once, not all of us, but a number of us worked once upon a time, and he was dating this woman, and we were 22, 23 at the time, and she came in one day because he forgot his lunch, and we were in a staff meeting, and so the receptionist is like, well, you can't go back there right now because we're in a staff meeting, so is there something you want to leave him? It's like, oh, I'll leave this lunch form. Let me put his name on it. And she writes, for my little Shmooikins. And when you're a 22-year-old sysadmin working with a bunch of other 22-year-old sysadmins and you're all male, like, you do not write Shmooikins on a bag and live it down. So so we started calling him Shmoo, and actually around the office, like, his business card said Shmoo and everything. And so he registered shmoo.com. And then when we were looking to start up the Shmoo group, we didn't originally, like, Hadi was involved and Shmoo was involved and a few other folks, and we were coming up with these names. And then we realized we were poor and we couldn't really register new domains because we didn't have $70 to throw down. Right. So we just used shmoo.com, and when we worked at Internet Alaska, it was tech support group TSG at alaska.net, so we called it the Shmoo group TSG at shmoo.com, and so it was like this little inside joke of how the name came to be. So it was really because we were broke and we knew a guy named Shmoo that we decided to use to call the Shmoo group.
That's cool. So he's now forever immortalized.
He is forever immortalized, yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bruce. We really appreciate you talking with us. Now, up next we have trivia. So, Allie, what was last month's trivia?
Last month's trivia question was, what is the full name of Section 1's resident hacker? And that was correctly answered by Manuel, as I call him. The name is Seymour Burkhoff. And Manuel admits to have Googled it. Nice Google-foo.
Google-foo good. Okay, so I've got this month's trivia question. The Voodoo 5 6000, an unreleased graphics card by 3DFX, contains so many circuits that a special external power supply was intended to have been included. How many VSA 100 graphics processing units would the card have featured? How many GPUs was the card supposed to have for the reason that it needed an external power supply? You should know where to send your answers, but just in case they don't know,
trivia at Hak5.org.
Alrighty. So up next, we are going to, I need to check my list. Adair and Eoin about Cachedump. Make you think about your NT logon privileges. Check it out.
All right, so I'm here with Eoin Miller and Adair Collins, and both of them were just previously talking at ShmooCon about Cachedump and a script that you guys have developed that makes things a little bit more secure when you're talking about Windows domain login. Can you tell me a little bit first about Cachedump and what some of the insecurities are with that?
Basically, Cachedump is just a utility that is used to dump the cached credentials from domain logins on local systems, and it installs itself as a service and executes under the context of the system user, and then pulls the information out of the registry and displays it to you, and it lets you know the cached logins that have been on that box.
So how would you say that this differs from something like PWDump?
PWDump is used more against the local security database as opposed to Cachedump, which is used against the specific registry entries for cache domain credentials when you have a machine that is a member of a domain environment as opposed to a dumping the password database of a local system.
So when you log into a Windows domain on a Windows network, what really happens that makes Cachedump able to pull something out of there?
What happens is when you log in locally or via RDP or even use the run as function, it all calls the win login process, and the win login process, depending upon your policies, if cache credentials is enabled, which it typically is, if you have a Windows domain with a lot of laptop users, what it does is it actually will cache the credentials. It goes through an algorithm. It'll cache the actual password in every single workstation where a domain admin is logged into, or if you run like Nessus with the local checks, or if you run popular patch management utilities, it does the same thing. It logs into every workstation using an account with domain admin privileges, and it leaves the password hash behind. So if that box gets compromised, if one of your 20,000 boxes gets compromised, you can actually dump those credentials and use a popular password cracking tool like John or Kane Enable, and you just have domain admin.
So what's the major vulnerability or the problem with the way that Windows does this that your script takes care of?
The way Windows works now, it either allows you to enable or disable cache credentials or limit the amount of number of cache credentials that get saved. That's not really ideal because with laptop users, they need to log in when they're not authenticating against a domain. They need to log in via cache credentials to their local laptop. So what the script does, it utilizes Cachedump, and it will go and look up Active Directory and see what group membership that user has. And then if it's a member of a domain admin privileged group, it'll actually zero out the cache credentials.
Okay, so from a black hat standpoint, without this script, which nullifies the hash in the cache on logout, how would you use this to take advantage of a machine, say like you had physical access? You're saying that the Cachedump needs to be installed as a service. Is that something that you could do with some sort of a live distro or something not using the local operating system?
There are things you can do without the local OS running. There are like Backtrack and other sorts of bootable Linux distros. In addition, actually, if you do a installation of, if you have a Windows CD and you do redo an installation over top of it in a repair, and you hit, I believe it's like Shift F12 or Shift F10, something like that, during the installation process, it brings up a command window. So then you can start up MMC and screw with the local accounts database. Well, when you do that, then you can just add a new user that's an administrator to the local system, and then after it's finished doing the repair process, it's still a member of the domain, and then you can just go ahead and log in locally with that, run Cachedump, and then grab all the local authentication, all the cached credentials very easily. So if they have physical access, they already have access to these credentials pretty much no matter what you do.
Oh, we've always been aware that physical access means the machine is owned no matter what, but it's kind of scary to think about the fact that if there are domain credentials cached on that machine, you could potentially get access to the entire network, not just that local machine. So I guess that's a good tip for anybody looking to repair a Windows machine, and that's Shift F10 on installation. So anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. Where can anybody find more information about your research?
We're going to be posting everything. We're going to email everything to the ShmooCon guys and post it up. I'll probably put the copy of the presentation up on my site, which is trojanbinaries.com, and I believe Adair can tell you about his.
And your site?
My site's wifisec.com, wifisec.com.
Very cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Dougie.
What?
Have you seen how easy GoDaddy.com is?
Huh?
Yeah, I just bought you for $1.99.
Did not.
Yeah, I did.
Dog nabbit.
Whoops, just did your dog.
Mr. Winky? My wife loves Mr. Winky.
Ah, now I'm gonna do your wife.
Your mother.
You know I'm gonna do your mother now.
Too late. I already did my mother.
Pervert. Enter code HACK, that's HAK, when you check out for an additional 10% off any order.
Anyway, so we're here at ShmooCon with Billy Hoffman from SPI Dynamics that just did a really interesting talk about JavaScript and how it's going to bring the goo? Explain to me this title real quick, because I think it's kind of interesting.
So the title was JavaScript malware for Grey Goo tomorrow, and Grey Goo is kind of this hypothetical, like, end of the world scenario where, like, nano machines just replicate and replicate until you have nothing but machines. So it's a big, giant, massive Grey Goo.
Is this like some sci-fi book where, you know, you
it's actually it's in fact this the person who created nanotech, you know, kind of prophesized that if we're not careful, it could happen. And like Bill Joy, the one of the founders of Sun, has written extensively about it. So it's kind of a fear, but the reason I used it in the talk is that JavaScript is one of these small little things that you don't think could ever cause you damage, but it's grown so powerful recently, so quickly, that you never know what's going to happen.
I see, the nanobots. I think they took over the enterprise once, actually.
Probably,
yeah.
Indeed.
Anyway, without going into too much of a dorky mode, I wanted to ask you about the port scan. You demonstrated a really nifty thing talking about using JavaScript to actually do some port scanning. How exactly does that work?
So JavaScript normally is pretty limited in how it can talk to people, but one of the things it can do is try to request images and also load other web pages in. Now, a lot of times you can't see the content that gets returned, but you can tell whether it succeeded or whether it failed or how long it took something to happen, and these are kind of a side channel. So if I try to load a document and within a certain amount of time I haven't gotten anything back yet, I know there's nothing there. And if I go ahead and I try to request certain type of content and there's a web server there's maybe an FTP server or something, it's going to react differently and I'll get different types of errors. So you can kind of use this as a side channel, even though you're not supposed to be able to get access to this information. You know, it's kind of like not seeing the object, but kind of seeing the shadow of it, and you can make assumptions about what it looks like. And so we can port scan with JavaScript. And SPI Dynamics actually has a white paper at spydynamics.com all about it.
Great.
And all the gory, geeky details.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be at the bottom of the screen. And you're also showing that that MySpace virus from 2005.
Yes.
To those that aren't really familiar with cross-site scripting, you also did a demonstration with CNN for your mom's birthday. How exactly does that, you know, on a real basic level for the beginner viewers? Sure. How does that work? So, what's the problem there?
Well, what happens is a lot of times websites will accept information from the user and then spit it back to the user. So they'll say things like, your search query for, you know, candy apples didn't return anything. Well, if they're not encoding their data that comes back properly, I can actually put HTML tags in there. So when it comes back to the browser is going to interpret it. Maybe it'll make the text really big, or, you know, pop open a new window or something like that. Well, another thing I can do is actually inject, say, Flash or JavaScript, so that when it gets returned back to the browser goes, hey, you know, CNN, for example, just gave me some JavaScript. I'm going to execute it. There's no reason for me not to. And so attackers can kind of use this reflective nature to inject their own code into a website, and then that code's going to get to a user's browser and run, and can do all sorts of things like port scanning. It can change the page, and so you could do massive defacements. In the CNN example, I used a cross-site scripting vulnerability to create a fake news story about my mom's birthday.
This sounds like it's perfect for phishing.
It is perfect for phishing, actually, because all phishing defense today relies on, am I actually at, you know, bankofamerica.com or not, or am I at some site in Russia? Well, if you have a cross-site scripting vulnerability in bankofamerica.com, you may, in fact, be at bankofamerica.com. You know, check the certificate. You know, some of those reputation toolbars, I'll say, you know, this many people think this is a good site. You know, they'll all pass because you're actually at bankofamerica.com. But JavaScript has rewritten the page to include a fake login page, or a fake login box, and so when you type it in there, you just got phished. And really, short of securing the website, there's nothing the end user can do to fix this, because from the browser's point of view, there's JavaScript there. It should execute it. It doesn't know that JavaScript wasn't supposed to be there but got injected through some other way.
Okay. So if the who's the burden on? Where's the, I don't want to say blame, but where is the insecurity coming from, and is there anything that the end user can do?
Certainly. The insecurity is in the design of the application, in the design of the web app, right? Because it's JavaScript isn't doing anything your browser isn't supposed to do, right? It's not like I'm exploiting a buffer overflow or a problem with the browser, though those are certainly common. But with JavaScript, I'm giving you code and your browser's going to run it. There's no reason for it not to. The problem lies in how it got there for the browser to run it. And what happens is when a developer creates a site or something like that, think about like a guest book, right?
Okay.
You're at a message site or something like this, or maybe a developer forum, you're asking some questions. If I post instead of a message that says, hey, I'm having trouble with PHP, can you help me out? I post a big block of HTML with a big flashing, like banner advertisement or something.
Well, of course,
like
there's checks in there. As somebody that's dabbled in PHP, and you accept something, you got to make sure at least you don't have, brackets on either end, because that's dead giveaway. But
certainly.
But so you're saying that we need to do more than just look for brackets?
Certainly. In fact, that's what we call blacklist input validation. That's when you say, I don't want brackets, or I don't want, say, a single tick, which is commonly used in SQL injection attacks, which is another thing against websites. But as soon as somebody finds out how to do an attack that doesn't involve brackets, your protections are out of date. So instead of saying, hey, I don't want to allow brackets, what you should say is, well, what am I going to allow somebody to post? Let's say if it's, a message board is kind of an odd case because you want them to post all sorts of characters. But if you're thinking about, like a magazine subscription page, right?
Sure.
For a zip code, there shouldn't be any numbers in there, or there should only be numbers. You shouldn't allow anything but numbers. For an address, only letters, numbers, maybe a space or a hyphen. Same thing with a name. You might want a tick for like O'Brien.
Right.
Most people not like that. And so not only should you validate for the data type, is this a number, is this a letter, but also length. A lot of times someone will find out whether something's a zip code or not. They'll take the string and say, is this a number? And they'll do some conversion in PHP and see if it passes, do like a try catch. The problem with this is what happens if I give you 9 billion? It's a number. It's going to pass, but if you put that into your application as a zip code, it's probably going to puke.
Okay, well, what would you say to a programmer or a web application developer like me that's just kind of a novice? I dabble. I throw together a little PHP script so that somebody can enter in some fields and get on the live show,
right.
And that'll just get emailed to me, And I check to make sure that there's no brackets, and is there an @ sign in your email address?
Right.
Okay, that sounds good. What's the best practice for programmers moving forward to write more secure code? Because what if there's a program that's not a security guru?
Very true. Well, it's not just about security. Security is kind of a benefit of doing input validation, right? If we just said, if I gave you a very large number, your program's going to puke. What happens if I gave you, any type of input you're not expecting, your program's going to be unstable. These are kind of edge cases you didn't think about when you were writing your app. Maybe you checked to see if there was an @ sign there, but you didn't check to see if there was an @ sign and a period and a this
right.
or that. And so really, it has a side benefit of making your app secure, but really it's how you write really strong, robust enterprise level applications. And so I would say to any kind of budding programmer who's just getting started, really try to think about how to write the best, strongest app you can. And the way you do that is take out all the uncertainty. There's some really good, the PHP manual actually, the php.net has some really good advice about how to avoid these types of issues. There's Wikipedia actually. If you do a Wikipedia search for web security, their articles are really quite good, and they give really good advice on how to fix things properly.
Okay, now going back to maybe more of the gray hat side, you did a demo of some Ajax code or some JavaScript code. I'm not really sure where the distinction is. I think you need rounded corners for it to be Ajax.
Yes, I think so.
But
and some venture capital too.
Oh, VC, that would be nice. Never mind, we don't want that. But you demonstrated a way to brute force browser history to guess, have you been to whatever.com?
This is kind of a neat way of abusing the browser in a way that was never intended. I'm a big fan as a hacker and just someone who's curious how to use something in a way it was never intended. Look at the Frisbee, right? The Frisbee were pie tins, but now they're a toy. So what I did with this stealing history stuff is JavaScript, because you can change the way the page looks and stuff, it's able to dynamically create like a hyperlink, to go somewhere. And we all know when you're using the browser, the links...
It's like pre-caching.
Exactly.
It's like, I think you might go here next, so let me just get that in the cache.
Exactly. And we all know that the browser, whether you've been to a link or not, it's visually different. Maybe it's a different color, it's underlined or not. And so what people can do is they can dynamically create a link and then see how the browser renders it. They can say, all right, I'm going to create a link to /. And now I'm going to see what the color of that link is. If it's purple as opposed to like a solid blue that's underlined, I know you've been to Slashdot. And so without actually sending any requests, I'm just basically asking your browser, I'm creating links and then seeing how your browser displays them to get a gauge of whether you've been to certain websites.
And that must take forever.
You'd think so, but I mean, look how fast modern machines are. I can do thousands of checks a second. So, and I mean, how many popular sites are there? Especially, think about an advertiser using something like this. I mean, we all see those like DoubleClick and all these people giving us cookies. It would be trivial for them to put a little piece of JavaScript, maybe ask the top 250 most popular sites. Or actually, if they were smart, they would do things like niche sites, like Hackaday, any type of site that's got a particular type of, visitor.
Niche, and then I've got, soldering iron advertisements. Yeah,
exactly.
Makes sense, but that's kind of an invasion of privacy, and
it is.
I hope DoubleClick doesn't use technology like that. But
I would hope not.
It
but
wouldn't be,
cookies. People used to think.
I remember when cookies were first in. And I was like, oh my gosh,
get rid of cookies.
Amazon knows who I am when I click checkout. So
well, they already do because you gave them your credit card.
So after watching your demo, I'm kind of getting the tinfoil hat feel, where I'm like, I need to disable cookies and I need to disable the JavaScript, and
I don't want to.
No. It's always that's always the it's like the reality distortion field of jobs. It dissipates, and then you realize, okay, I'm living in the real world, and there's certain risk that I take when I go to MySpace because, come on, it's MySpace. You showed off a really interesting, where you talked about something called the Perl and XSS hybrid worm. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that is?
Yes. So a lot of times we've seen kind of with traditional ways people do kind of like attacks and things like that. They're either exploiting a web app with, say, cross-site scripting, or they are attacking the server. They're attacking your lower level stuff. And I started thinking, well, is it possible to have something that does both? Because both the JavaScript and the VBScript language are very similar to Perl. They both have similar named functions, and the way that what is a comment in Perl is different than what's a comment in JavaScript. So it's actually possible to have a single block of code, and you've got something where it's like you're declaring a variable with a lot of code instructions, but it's commented out if you're using Perl. But if you throw that to a JavaScript interpreter, those characters aren't a comment, and so that code actually gets executed and run. So the same piece of code, regardless of whether you're giving it to Perl or you're giving it to JavaScript, will do the same thing.
And that would be rendered by the browser?
If it's being JavaScript, it will be rendered by the browser, and then the browser, or the JavaScript in the browser, can send the same worm to try to attack the server where it would run as Perl.
That's a scary thought, but very interesting. Is there a proof of concept code that anybody could go and take a look at?
Unfortunately, this is something I've kind of been toying around with over the last year. And
so they're going to just have to check your blog, or where can they go to find that eventually, and all sorts of other good nuggets?
Memestreams.net is actually where I blog. It's a social networking site that lets you post content, but kind of differently than, say, Dig or something like that. They use kind of reputation systems. So as you use the site, maybe I like, this guy's commentary on, this type of technology, and I like this guy's, recipe tips. And so the site actually changes, and it kind of adjusts to what you like. It's really kind of like a looking glass or a filter. And so you only see things that interest you.
So would you lose reputation points for doing the MySpace photo? Okay.
Probably.
Now, before we get going, you just debuted Jikto.
Yes.
And I would be very interested in finding out more about what Jikto can do for those in penetration testing or just want to fool around.
Sure. Well, Jikto was a proof of concept that we showed off. We had thought about giving the code away, but we're going to do a little bit more work with it, maybe do something like that around Black Hat. We want to make sure we're not, arming script kiddies, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're educating people so that they understand.
It's always a fine line. It's a hard balance.
It's a tough line. So Jikto is a web vulnerability scanner, but written in JavaScript. So we already have things.
So this is like Nessus for your website.
Exactly. And we already have, there's a pretty big market. It's pretty old too. It's about 5 or 6, 7 years now. We've had things like Whisker and Nikto, and there are plugins even for Nessus to do more web-based stuff. And so kind of web vulnerability scanners is a growing, interesting field, and it turns out you can actually write one in JavaScript too. So now, if I find, say, a vulnerability in one site and I inject code in it, that code can then go and scan other websites and find other vulnerable sites and hop. so it can actually move from host to host like a worm. And it's cross-platform because it's JavaScript, so it's running in your browser. So this is going to work on your little, Apple iPhone running Safari, the way it's going to work on your, Sidekick running, say, I don't even know what Sidekicks run, but I know they've got a JavaScript interpreter. Your Trio, any of these things, as well as your standard PC, be it Mac or Linux or Windows.
Hacking from my cell phone. Sounds like fun. Now, for those that are watching this and just salivating at all this JavaScript and malicious talk, where can they go to, if they want to dig deeper into this kind of stuff? You got any resources you want to give out? Maybe some links to...
Certainly. There's a really good... there are a lot of really good white papers at spydynamics.com, obviously. Like I said, Wikipedia is actually remarkably good in how educated they are. There's some really good books. The best one I'd have to recommend, normally I'm not a big fan of the Hacking Exposed book, but it's Hacking Web Applications Exposed. Actually, the CTO of Spy wrote it, but he very much worked as a professional pen tester, so it's not a dry academic tome. It's very much, all right, here's what an attacker does to break in, and then here's how you fix it. Here's how an attacker gets around that. Here's how you fix that. And so it's kind of a tit for tat, which is really quite good. And if you're interested in more kind of the Web 2.0 AJAX-y stuff, I'm actually writing a book right now for Addison Wesley on AJAX security. It'll be out about the time of Black Hat, but I think on Safari, the digital kind of book library, it should be up there in about a month.
Nice. So very good. I mean, it's all the rage right now, and we shouldn't get too caught up in all the nifty features without being concerned about the security.
And I really should stress that it sounds all new and nifty. Somebody actually at the talk asked me this, well, what about this for security? This doesn't sound new. Security isn't really a new concept. There hasn't really been anything new or groundbreaking in security in 30 years. I mean, a buffer overflow or a cross-site scripting vulnerability or a SQL injection, I mean, all of these things come down to you accepted something from the client and you acted on it without checking to see what it was first. I mean, a buffer overflow is just a controlled crash of your application, and applications crash because there was some edge case or something you forgot to do. Buffer overflows just happen to crash your app in a way that they execute code while it dies. But I mean, there are several very basic fundamental concepts that really all security is based off of. In fact, Michael Howard, he's a Microsoft guy, he's got a book called The 7 Deadly Sins of Software Developers, and it's excellent. It kind of runs through these big 7 kind of core concepts, even though really there's only about 4. He kind of embellishes a couple out in some edge cases. But that's a really good resource too. And it's also written, you don't have to be a genius programmer, you can just be starting out. It's a good explanation.
Okay, and where can our viewers find out more information about you and SPI Dynamics and specifically Jikto?
Well, you can go to spydynamics.com. I'm going to have all the slides up from the presentation here. We're probably going to write up a white paper in the next couple of days about exactly what Jikto does and how it works. And of course, I'm always open for email. It's bhoffman@spydynamics.com.
Very good. Well, Billy, thank you so much for coming on and giving our viewers a taste of the insecure goo.
The insecure goo. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was Billy Hoffman with Jikto. That definitely frightened me when it came to JavaScripting. I was like, ooh, that's not good. But right now we have the poll. And I have last month's poll results, and the question was, what audio format do you prefer, MP3, OGG Vorbis, AAC, MIDI, or WMA? And the winner, by a landslide, was 61%, MP3. Second, OGG with 25, AAC 5%, MIDI 4%, and WMA 2%. Lol. I can't believe WMA actually got any votes.
Stupid WMA.
Stupid WMA. So what's this month's poll question?
This month's poll question is FPS, RTS, that other crap. Hey, who wrote this? It's MMORPG. Thank you very much.
So,
what gets your vote?
FPS, RTS, or MMO?
Yeah, and for those of you who are, noobs, that's gaming.
Oh, gee, because they couldn't figure that one out.
Well, some of them might not.
Anyway, so check out the poll at hak5.org/poll. And so what do we have next, Aaron?
Yeah. You were supposed to remember that. Oh, hang on. It's the knock.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the knock.
Inside the knock.
Inside the knock.
You're both
at
noobs.
ShmooCon.
Okay, I'm here with Ken over at ShmooCon, taking a look at the Network Operations Center and from what I understand, you are the guy that architects or maintains this beautiful little network-gasm.
Well, not exactly. I mean, I'm one of many people that kind of set all this stuff up. I guess I kind of like brought everything together, but I'm definitely not like the sole person responsible. I can't like really claim.
Yeah, I've seen tons of the lab people here, all day and all night. I mean, and why wouldn't you want to leave when there's so many blinking lights?
Exactly.
So maybe I was hoping you could show us around and tell us what all these blinking lights do. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about these IDSs?
Yeah, so basically they're actually, both of the systems are, they're inline IPS systems, which basically so up there on the wall is where the internet connectivity comes in from the hotel network. And then the traffic gets routed through these boxes. They're basically totally transparent, so they just bridge all the traffic through. They both have capabilities to do intrusion prevention, so basically they would analyze all the traffic going through, look for signatures of known attacks, and then drop traffic according to those signatures. The way that we've been using them is actually more from an analysis standpoint, where they're looking at the data, matching signatures, and recording it, but we're not actually dropping anything through these systems.
So there's no special VLAN for the bad guys. They can go to jail and stay in their own little subnet or anything like that?
No, we're not doing. We're not doing like any sort of network access control where we would, like quarantine
segregate
someone based off of activity. The network is highly segregated and highly modular, and there are a lot of VLANs based on like the different areas of the network, but we're not doing any sort of active like quarantine.
So what about these bad boys over here?
So these guys are actually servers for the Applied Security Contest. I don't know if you checked out their contest at all. I haven't gotten a chance to actually, play with it or compete in it. But these are all the servers that they brought down for that, and so they kind of have like a hacking contest where they have like a series of challenges that people go through, and so we actually have them like on their own isolated network.
So it's totally free hacking zone here, encouraged to do all your fun, vulnerability testing, exploits, and stuff like that. And I guess that keeps the rest of the network clear from, nasty traffic.
Potentially. It's not actually like the networks are not physically isolated. We do have them. For instance, we have one wireless network that blankets the entire conference. And so on that wireless network, there are multiple SSIDs available. One of them is the ShmooCon SSID, which provides network access, internet access. The other is the ASI Hackett SSID, which provides access to these servers. And so through the same AP, you can connect to either one of the networks, and depending on which SSID you're associated to, it'll route your traffic to the different networks. So they're not physically separated. They're basically logically separated, on the same cable plant or wire plant.
And this mess over here in the rack?
So the top box is the controller for the network chemistry. It's a wireless IDS system. And so basically, if you were to go out through the conference area, there are a bunch of sensors close to all the access points that are monitoring all the wireless traffic and looking for security events on the wireless network. Different than these, these guys don't see any of the wireless traffic because by the time it reaches them, it's no longer wireless. So the network chemistry box looks at like actual, like 802.11 based attacks, and it can do. So for instance, one of the things that it can do is that if we have ShmooCon access points with particular BSSIDs, and it can monitor for ShmooCon access points advertising ShmooCon that are not authorized BSSIDs, and then send DAuth attacks to those particular access points.
So have you seen many attacks?
We've seen quite a few attacks. Like our DNS servers have gotten many attack attempts. We've seen on the wireless side, there's been because we have the wireless network in an open state where anyone can connect, that's susceptible to a lot of attacks. And really, at the end of the day, because it's wireless, anyone can custom craft wireless frames and attempt to inject traffic. And so we actually had a wireless security vendor who, unbeknownst to us until it was brought to our attention, was actually hijacking wireless connections and redirecting all web requests to a page that said, "Hey, come check out our booth in the vendor area."
Oh, hey, that's nice.
It was nice. I mean, it kind of
it wasn't goatsy though.
It wasn't goatsy. Well, but then there was also like we had like some Tub Girl instances and that type of thing. I mean,
Google that.
All pretty par for the course. Not no surprises really. Like we didn't no like O days or anything like that.
So for next year, Any planned changes, or just swap out all the vendors for the fun of it, or is there anything in particular you really want to add to the network?
Well, you know, it's funny. We actually had a talk about that. One of the talks that we had today was basically a dissection of this whole project and how it went, and you know what we would do differently next year. And one thing that we've talked about is providing more local services, or coming up with more ways to get people at the conference
Jabber
involved in the network. Yeah, or potentially Jabber, having like some sort of VoIP services, or local torrent trackers. I mean, there's a whole range of things that we could do. But basically, outside of just providing the core internet connectivity, coming up with more ways to make stuff local to the conference.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for spending some time and showing us the network. It's
my pleasure.
Looks like a lot of fun, and maybe next year I'll be gutsy enough to bring my notebook and even connect.
Nah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Ken, for taking us on the tour of the NOC. That was freaking awesome. Thank you. So coming up, we're gonna
take a look at the Hack or Halo. It's kind of you can play Halo or you can hack.
It's like the ultimate LAN party type deal, but
yeah,
way more organized and really cool. But up first, we need to talk about the new web contest.
And we're going to try something new and do sort of a like fan site kind of make a fan site for Hak5 using only Web 1.0. Send them into contest@hak5.org. We'll take a look at them, figure out what's the best, show off the the nominees, and then the best one on the next episode, who will get an uber awesome special super prize.
Yeah. Now, when we say Web 1.0, excuse me, we're talking like GeoCities.
Yeah, we're talking. You're getting judged on usage of marquee and animated GIFs.
Yes, animated GIFs, marquee, guest books, tickers or counters.
All that fun CGI happiness that, oh boy.
And just make sure when you make your submissions that you include all the files and zip it up together so it's easy for us to see the HTML.
No, just point us to it.
Or you can point us to it, either way.
That would be way better, because then we can judge them on fun stuff like usage of Angel Fire.
GeoCities. Woohoo.
So, yeah. Send your submissions to contest@hak5.org. You can find all the official rules at hak5.org/contest, and we figure this just kind of be a fun new thing to try out. And if you're wondering about the set's in the shop, but it'll be back next episode. Anyway, so let's go take a look
at Hack
or Halo.
Boom, headshot.
All right, so I'm sitting here with Jordan and Wes from the Hack or Halo over at ShmooCon. Can you tell me a little bit about what Hack or Halo is and where it came about?
Hack or Halo came about at the very first ShmooCon as kind of a way to get the hacker community to do their thing and the gaming community to do their thing, both at the same time. And the winner of the hack side gets something to help their gaming side, and the winner of the Halo competition gets something to help their hack side, because they clearly need to do the other thing more. It's been going on. This is now the third year. All the years that ShmooCon has been going on, and this year it's looking out to be pretty good.
So the LAN gamers for the Halo get some wireless equipment, from what I understand?
This year, yeah, we're giving them a ridiculously tall Yagi antenna and some wireless cards. It's huge. And the winners of the Halo competition, or the hack competition, are getting an Xbox 360.
Very cool. So how does the hack competition work? Can you kind of step us through that?
Sure. Well, I don't know how it worked last year. This is my first ShmooCon. This year, we have a set of puzzles that range from specific security type, exploit this box as quick as possible, to here's a slightly hack-related puzzle, and you really use your brain to do it. We've gone through the first round of the hack so far, and no one's gotten more than, what, 5?
5 or 6. Yeah.
5 or 6, and there's 22 puzzles in all. And about 4 or 5 of them are really, really simple, so I don't know what people are spending their time on.
They think the puzzles are harder than they actually are. Yeah. Most of them are really not super difficult. Just requires you to. A lot of them is just sniffing and looking for abnormal traffic, or crafting packets with certain bytes set or bit set. And so they're really not that difficult. People are just thinking it's too hard. Last year's and the year before ShmooCon or Hacker Halo was a pure exploit-based, own as many machines as you can, as fast as you can, and you have like 10 minutes to do it. We wanted to get away from that and move more towards a thinking type of game. So that's what we did.
Are there any specific rules for the way you play the hack?
No internet access. You get 55 minutes, which is crazy for 22 puzzles. What else?
There's one person per hack keyboard, but you can have as many friends behind you helping. They can't be on the internet either.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. And anything goes. Don't attack your teammates. They're not worth a point. They're not a puzzle. And don't attack the VMware server.
Okay, so they're on the other side of this wall and can't hear us, so maybe you could give us an example of one of the puzzles.
One of the ones that the creators, myself and Jordan, and some of the other guys who helped set up is there's a series of ASCII ports, and we give them the nmap output. The ports in ascending order, they're just random, not random. There's a reason why we pick those ports, but if you connect to them, they're just TCP ports. If you connect to them, you get a quote from Family Guy, a random Family Guy quote off of every port that you connect to that's open. And the trick to that, the clue is Compton says the ports are trying to tell you something, and what you're supposed to do is take all of the ports in ascending order, line them up in one large string, chop them up into 3, and convert them to their ASCII equivalent, and it spells straight out a question mark, and the hint is straight out of Compton, the old NWA song. So that's one of the more intricate puzzles. Is probably, in my opinion, the most difficult puzzle. But no one's gotten that so far. No one's even come close. So
it sounds like one of those fun things, like the hidden Futurama strings in the headers of Slashdot or something like that. Yeah. And definitely something that we go for and love to do. We sometimes on our show do little Easter eggs where a URL will pop up, and next thing you know, you're playing a game and finding some little videos and stuff. So where'd the idea for this kind of come from?
I was the one who presented it to Chris Compton, who's running all of Hacker Halo. We basically came up with, I had seen at DEF CON 6 or 7 puzzle box done by a guy who calls himself Palante. He's out in San Diego, or at least back then he was. And his box was hands down the most difficult thing I'd ever seen. It required some custom SSH client to even get into, and then you're dropped in this bizarro shell that's supposed to teach you how to play Unix, and then you had to break out of that. There was just this puzzle after puzzle after puzzle, and they just got weirder and weirder as you went on. And to this very day, my friends and I that helped work on it still talk about it. So when we made the decision that we wanted to move away from pure exploit-based game, I just said, why don't we just make a bunch of puzzles and maybe interlace the puzzles, so you have to solve puzzle 1 to get through the next one, and it just kind of went from there, and that's where the inspiration came from.
Sounds like there's a high probability of being eaten by a GRU. No?
By what?
By a GRU?
He doesn't know what a GRU is. I only know because I have really dorky friends.
I don't know.
Don't bother dropping him into a shell. Just drop him right into NetHack. It'll be fun.
I was actually thinking about that.
Yeah,
I was really thinking about that.
We both like to play
55
NetHack,
minutes is not enough time to play a good game in NetHack, so...
Yeah, you got to be real fast for a good game in NetHack in 55 minutes.
So moving forward with the next ShmooCon, any ideas of changing the game format, anything like that? What do you see with the Hacker Halo on the horizon?
Don't know.
We don't know.
We've been tossing around the idea somewhat jokingly that we need to have Hack or Halo or Guitar Hero, because people who play Guitar Hero that really like it are sadistic fans of it. Like yourself, probably. Apparently you. Yeah. So it seems to be a really good game, really popular. It could probably generate some serious competition.
And not to mention, you get the tagline, you can kill people in Halo, you can hack in the hack competition, or you can just rock out at Guitar Hero. I mean, the taglines are infinite.
If you guys end up doing that, then we will definitely be here next year, because Wes behind the camera right now is just ready to start thrashing and rocking and rolling. And is giving us devil horns. Anyway, I understand that you guys are busy hacking, so good luck with the hack, and look forward to seeing how it turns out. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so we just heard from Jason West from Hacker Halo. Thank you guys. It was awesome. Yeah. Now, Paul, you made it semifinals?
Yeah, semifinals. I kind of got taken out there, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing Halo.
Yeah, dude, I sat there and watched most of your bouts, and you did a really good job. I think you just kind of got...
Yeah, it's kind of a little confusing with the giant screen like being all the way across in the upper left corner when you're down in the lower right.
But, it didn't make any sense, but...
whatever.
You made it pretty far, though, so hats off to you.
Yeah.
So,
we just got out of Hacker Halo, and up next we have Scott Moulton with the hard drive.
Yes, but before that, we have to talk about more video games.
Even better.
Oh! LAN party.
Oh. I didn't like Fear, sorry.
You didn't like Fear?
It wasn't... I'd run up to like somebody and try and punch them, but I'd fail.
Shoot them. Dude, you gotta use the penetrator.
Well, I'd run around, like, try and, like, go snipe them in the head and then, like, get one shot off and then hit them, but it never worked out.
Well, part of the problem was none of us had the rigs to play it.
Yeah, I had to borrow yours.
Yeah, and that...
Then I took Darren's and I went to, like, controller, which felt a lot better, but...
Yeah. So anyway, this month's LAN party, for the third and final time, GoldenEye Source. It's already out now, so we don't have to worry, like play this waiting game. Oh God, are they gonna release in time? I don't know.
But they're out, right?
It is out. So
is it good looking?
Dude, I just got Half-Life 2. I haven't downloaded it yet, but if it looks half as good as those screenshots,
I know those screenshots were beautiful. I was like,
Yeah, I know. Like, I want it out. So we're gonna play GoldenEye Source. So if you don't have Half-Life 2, go get a copy. I didn't say buy it. I just said get a copy.
Yes.
Dig up your old
just
discs.
Somehow own it.
Yes. Somehow acquire. Anyway, so like you said, up next is we have Scott Moulton with hard drive recovery.
Yep.
Which that was pretty.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah. It's definitely
everything you need to know just right there.
Yeah, definitely. But then after that we have the Hacker Arcade. You thought my arcade was cool. You need to check out what these guys did. So stay tuned after that. So
here was Scott Moulton from Forensic Strategy Services, and you just did an interesting talk here at ShmooCon about reanimating dead hard drives. And I think it's really a concern that all geeks have, that fear that one day you're going to boot up and it's all gone. And I guess it's not the if, it's more or less the when, because
sooner or later they're all going to die.
It's really scary thinking. So you did an interesting presentation where you really broke down how the hard drive works and how you can use some tools to recover data and some common problems. One in particular, and I'm sure we're all familiar with it, the click of death.
Right.
It just sounds so cool, but who hasn't had a hard drive that's gone into clicky-clacky mode? When that happens, what do you do?
Well, because the motor's spinning and the board still seems like it's supplying power, in a lot of cases it's not going to be the PCB board, and a lot of people are trying to swap the platters and things like that to try to get that problem solved, instead of doing something like a PCB board where you're not going to actually read anything back. But it's a fairly complicated problem, and it's not a really easy problem to solve. It's better to be knowledgeable about what the problem is, and if you have at least tried or practiced doing some of the either head replacement or the platter replacements yourself, you'll at least have some sort of a success. But you at least need to know that that's a very difficult problem to solve, and that putting it in the freezer is not going to solve your problem.
Right, I've heard those live tales that throw it in the freezer, or you drop it, flat from 2 feet, and then it'll come back. And I don't know if any of those. I mean, you've probably seen more hard drives than I have. So, is there any merit to any of that stuff?
Well, if you put it in the freezer for 10 or 15 minutes, in a lot of cases, you will actually be able to see some data. It causes the metal to contract, and the head might pull away from the platter. But then you also have the condensation problem or some other problem that's going to be introduced in about 10 minutes from the time that it starts running. And so you may do further damage to it, especially if you're not really quick at getting that content off your drive, and you just can't copy that much that fast. Hard drives like to be about 42 degrees or so, and you can probably actually get more accomplished at 42 degrees if you can figure out how to keep it at that temperature without having condensation.
Right, and I think my computer runs at 42 degrees Celsius. So.
Yeah, that's probably right. It's probably pretty hot, so especially if it's a Mac.
From what I understand, SMART is just a way to score or to get an idea of where your drive health is. and you were also talking about the bad block list. Where's really the difference between those? Like,
well, the bad block list is and it existed prior to SMART or anything else. SMART's whole point in life is to be a predictive failure type analysis tool, and so it's supposed to be able to tell you that I've got too many bad blocks coming up, or that I've got problems with heat and sensitivity, and keep track of those things. There's a number of them, and they vary by manufacturer and what thresholds are for SMART to report that something's good or bad that's happening to your drive. But its entire life was just meant to be a predictive failure so that you could copy your data off of a drive that was dying if you had some sort of a warning. And that's what it was meant to do.
And are there any tools that you would recommend to actually check out, like hardware errors?
Yes.
Other than just the SMART stuff.
There is a couple of free packages that are really high-end diagnostic tools, and there is a piece of software that's called MHDD. And MHDD and Victoria are both written by Russian people, and there's English versions of them. And it seems that they had some really high-end training in data recovery and working on some hardware and other software that they had previously done. Their software looks like it's modeled after a lot of that. And it can tell you certain things like how long a sector is taking to read and be destructive on that, or it can read the SMART table and tell you what kind of errors and things that you're having and track it over time. But it can also do some data recovery routines and things along the way. And the other really good big benefit that it has too is that it skips the BIOS. So if you have a hard drive that doesn't mount, that you might actually be able to skip the BIOS and talk directly to the drive using these tools and not have to try to wait for your system to show up in that table. A lot of people are under the misconception that when your system starts, if it doesn't show your drive in the table, that you can't do anything.
I don't know how many hard drives I've stuck on the shelf labeled bad because it didn't show up in the BIOS, and I can't get any other BIOS to read it, so I'm like, well, so much for that drive.
Right. It's not a problem with the BIOS from that standpoint. There's things that you can do sometimes and talk directly to the hard drive itself. And that's what MHDD will do right off the bat.
I might be able to get some of my quick basic files back from the early 90s.
Right. One thing I can tell you that's a really good benefit too is if you find these old Adaptec 1200A controllers, these old Adaptec 1200A controllers are basically MHDD was written around some of the ability that thing has to actually talk to the drive and do some recovery and use it as a secondary controller. And you can find them for like 10 and 12 bucks on eBay now. So they're really helpful for you if you're going to use MHDD.
Okay. Now before we get into more of the recovery stuff, what to do, let's understand a bit more about hard drives and how they work, because you were mentioning earlier that the heads have actually changed recently, and then even after that, there's been changes to the platters. So what are those major changes in the you were saying the MR heads and whatnot?
The MR head is primarily the head that we used in the 90s, and we have switched now to something called the GMR head. So the GMR head is a lot more sensitive and can read smaller aerial densities. So it has allowed us to move from, say, a 10 or a 20 gig hard drive into the 500 gig range. At the same time, we also have other issues with aerial density causing problems as it has increased. And so a lot of manufacturers are now switching to what's called the perpendicular heads. And the perpendicular heads basically change the direction that they write. Instead of doing north and south along the drive, they write up and down. And so the platter's been made a little bit deeper with some softer layers in between, and some changes were made to the actual material that you use for a platter to possibly be glass or a ceramic glass, so that the perpendicular drives can write more data to that and get a higher density for the drive.
When it comes to drive recovery and like imaging to other drives and stuff like that, what kind of tips would you give for that, and what kind of software do you use, before you send it off to some place to be, opened up and done in a clean room professionally? What do you use at home?
Well, the very first thing that I would do is, it depends on the drive too. If it's not spinning up or anything like that, you're already dealing with some sort of a hardware error. It is easy enough to look at the board that is on your hard drive, because it's primarily 4 screws, and you can take them off and look at your board, and sometimes you'll just see a burn spot on it. And if you do, then you're dealing with something that's fairly easy from a standpoint of just replacing that board, but you've got to find the right board to put on it. But if your hard drive is working and it's physically spinning and you can do some things, if it can't mount in the BIOS, then you can obviously look at it with MHDD and see if you can actually talk directly to the hard drive and do anything. But if it's still mounting in the BIOS and even like Windows can see it, but it's going really slow and having some sector problems or something like that, you want to do what you can to minimize scanning the whole hard drive or trying to read every sector off that hard drive, because you may get a failure in between. So one of the tools I use is from Runtime Software. There's a program that's called NTFS Explorer or something along those lines, and it basically allows you, like if you have a Windows drive and you want to know exactly where your My Documents folder is, if it can read the MFT and not have to scan the rest of the hard drive, it'll tell you all the sectors, and you'll be able to just click on that folder and say save this folder. And because that way you're not doing the Windows folder or the something along those lines that's completely unnecessary. But if you're using other data recovery software, like there's some packages like Run RStudio, something along those lines, and RStudio will scan the entire hard drive to tell you what files and categories you can get back. And it may be necessary to do that if you can't read a table or something along those lines, but I would say anything you can do to minimize the amount of time and how hard you're hitting that hard drive is going to be a necessity.
Okay. So if Windows is completely borked, but you think you may be able to get some data off the drive, do you use any like live CDs or anything like that?
I will use live CDs. I will use any method I can whatsoever to get data back from a drive if I can. So if I have problems with NTFS and NTFS isn't working right, because Linux does a great job with handling NTFS and read-only mode, things like that, sometimes I can actually read the files out of the system just using a boot CD from Ubuntu or something like that and copying my files off and reformat the hard drive.
What about imaging? Is there anything that you need to be concerned about, like if you were to take, like I think this one's on the brink of blitzing out and you want to take an identical one and transfer, bit for bit over. What are the kind of things that we want to look for before we do that?
Well, one of the cool things is it doesn't have to be an identical drive. This is one of those unique situations where if you're trying to do some imaging, that because drives have cache on them and they're trying to read forward, they're trying to read from the 0 sector all the way through the max LBA sector, there is a chance that by turning off either the DMA and going with PIO mode, that you might actually be able to image that drive at a slower speed, or that you can do it in reverse, which means that my cache is off. I'm basically not using cache because cache is a pre-cache and it's looking forward.
Right.
So there is a free program out there that some Linux people know about. It's called DD Rescue, and DD Rescue has a specific switch in it to allow you to start at max LBA and go to 0 instead of 0 to max LBA. So you may be able to accomplish imaging your drive and then use the second layer actually going for the files or whatever it is, because it's independent of operating system at that point in time. You're making a complete image of it and then going for the data inside the image so that you're not still dealing with your bad hard drive.
One last kind of strange question that's always been on my mind is that when it comes to, and I hope this isn't a religious debate like Vi and Emacs, but SATA or ATA and SCSI drives, is there really a difference in their longevity?
Well, I think that because the SCSI platform is still made with a little bit better, they're more expensive, there's more poured into them, their firmware is a little bit better, things like that. That's why we're not seeing the tremendous jumps in size either that we're seeing in the IDE world, is that it's all about the dollar and trying to squeeze as much as you can down. I would still say that there probably is a lot better of a lifespan with SCSI hard drives than there is with IDE hard drives. And I'm certainly seeing some major things there from a standpoint of time frames, because prior to 2000, they may have been pretty close to the same because the head technology was fairly similar. But now I think that they're in such a hurry to use all the new heads to make a higher capacity drive that we're dealing with things like there's a brand new head that's about to come out that Fujitsu has kind of rebuilt, which is a 7-layer head called the Colossal head. So it's going to be able to read much more amounts of data at a smaller amount.
Wow. So
I really think that we are looking at the facts being that a SCSI is going to last longer and seems to have a better lifespan than what we're seeing in IDE. But we also have smaller quantities now.
Yeah.
So now we're dealing with tons and thousands of IDE hard drives out there, and constantly we're going to have some failures.
They're so inexpensive now that you could pick up, two 500 gigs for $300 and rate them.
Right.
And, not really have to worry too much.
I agree, and I recommend it for everybody, especially if you got critical data on a workstation. Doing like an IDE RAID 5 would be my highest recommendation.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and
Great.
vast resource of information. Where can they find more information about you and the stuff that you do with Forensic Strategy Services?
MyHardDriveDied.com. That is my primary website for doing that stuff, and on a presentation page there's all kinds of information about serial numbers and replacements of hard drives and a variety of things. So MyHardDriveDied.com is the best place.
All right, thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you.
Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go.
All right, so now we're standing here in the Hacker Arcade at ShmooCon, and with me I have Ryan and David, and if you look behind me here, you'll see Duck Hunt on a projector. What do we got going on over here? Like, what's the deal?
Well, essentially, we built our own arcade box, just with a Linux box and a 700 megahertz Pentium 3. We cut open a coin acceptor to the side of the machine and basically made it so that you could accept coins and launch the game. In addition to which, it's controlled by the Nintendo Wiimote system, just to add a touch of irony to it, since Nintendo still hasn't come out with their own version of Duck Hunt for the Wii. So we beat them to the chase.
Tell them how the
coin
acceptor works, David.
The coin acceptor gets a little technical. Essentially, it's basically just a serial cable attached to itself. It's a loopback cable, but the data wires, I think 5 and 6 are... No, that's wrong, but they're basically crossed and disconnected until a coin is dropped, where they're connected for a short second. And there's some modifications that are created to the Shmoo Group's code that essentially allow it to basically send signals to itself and and listen to itself and not be able to do anything until the coin is dropped, and that launches a key in the game, which is emulated, and key emulation is actually very hard.
So the coin slot, what you've got going on, is is it just like when the coin drops through, it bridges the connections, or do you have a micro switch down there?
Yeah, that's essentially it. I mean, it's pretty much the cheapest way to go. I mean, how much did that coin acceptor cost?
Like $30, something.
Oh, well, it was a little more expensive than I thought it was, but it's still cheap. It's still cheaper, than buying an arcade machine.
So, what else can you tell us about what's going on up here? Like, I see the IR thing up there. Or?
Again, David did that. I just kind of helped him put it together in the end. So, another interesting part is actually how they're distributing the point systems. Like for instance, we tried to have it so if you score a certain point amount, you would get a certain amount of tokens. Shmoo ball. Where's our return fire?
Oh, here it is.
Here we go. So, okay. There we go. So, they have some crypto code that generates keys and gives you guys tokens for how many points you get. So on top of the coolness of the arcade, we're giving out points on USB thumb drives, which are redeemable for merchandise at the end of the ShmooCon, so it's pretty cool.
So now I noticed one thing when I was playing it is that the accelerometers work, but since the IR isn't working for the triangulation of location. Yeah, there it is. For anybody that's unfamiliar with the Wiimote, everything's done over Bluetooth. All the buttons and all the motions sent over Bluetooth, but it uses the infrared for triangulation. So when you can do this, it senses you're moving left or right, but it'll also give you the location on the screen. And I know there's a Windows version, but you said you had problems with the Linux driver for the Wiimote.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of different Linux drivers available. They all use libwiimote at its core, but the original one that we went with, WMD, which I think stands for We Want to Mote Damn It, which that's not actually a real acronym, but that's what they called it. Basically sucked up around 75% of the CPU cycles available, and when you're emulating stuff on top of that, it basically became completely useless and was totally bricked. So we just dumped that driver altogether because we just didn't have a choice, and it did use the infrared sensor and everything like that. We found another one at the last minute called Seaweed. That's written in C, and it was a lot better in terms of performance, although we kind of, it turns out, had to sacrifice the calibration for the infrared as a result. But, a little tit for tat, whatever.
When he says last minute, he means last minute. This was this morning, like 1 o'clock this morning, getting the remote to work. Yeah. So everything that went wrong with this arcade box has gone wrong. So yes indeed, my friend.
Murphy strikes again. Well, and again, and again. All right, thank you so much, fellas. Greatly appreciate it.
Man, it's been a fun conference.
Yes, it's been. Oh, you like those lightning fast reflexes. You know what? Before he even cuts it.
Return fire.
Oh, I missed because I threw left-handed. Yeah, and you throw like a girl.
So goes the ShmooCon, guys.
All right. Catch y'all later. Okay, so I'm standing here with Babak from TOOL here at ShmooCon, and so let's cut straight to it. What is TOOL? What's TOOL all about?
Well, TOOL stands for the Open Organization of Lockpickers. It's been around in one form or another for quite some time, actually. The original organization started in the Netherlands, I think almost over 20 years ago, is no longer around in its original form, but most of the members that were part of that are now part of TOOL. There's also been for quite some time other organizations in other European countries about lockpicking. You have SS Dev in Germany, and you have some guys in France and the UK, and there's actually quite a few organizations like this that have been around in Europe. And a while ago, we figured that it was about time that we have a U.S. division of something like this, and so I ended up, me and some other people got a hold of the TOOL people, Barry Wells and Han Fei and the rest of the group, and after some talks, we decided it would be about time to formally start a U.S. division here, and it's turned out really well so far. We're all about the sport and the hobby of picking. We don't actually really concentrate on bypass methods for actual doors or anything like that. But it's a really fun hobby. It's a particular form of hacking that almost anyone can wrap their minds around. You don't have to have years and years of experience in some dark basement hacking away at code to be able to do this.
With the really bad monitor tan.
Sure, absolutely. And it's one of the forms of hacking that I think most people don't have any trouble relating to. Everyone understands it, even if they don't end up going through with actually using it as a hobby. Everyone understands it, and everyone has some sort of interest in it. Right. And so it's been really rewarding in that respect.
Right. Now, obviously, the whole idea of lock picking has become part of a bad stigma, and so do you guys ever catch any flack about that from any kind of law enforcement?
Not really at all. Actually, as part of TOOL, TOOL is recognized as one of the more prestigious and well-established lockpicking organizations. As part of our member list, we have actually already quite a few police officers that are part of TOOL, firemen, and we have a few detectives, people with military backgrounds. We have informal relationships with certain lock manufacturers for testing product samples. TOOL's actually a pretty serious organization, and we actually really aren't hassled as much as you might think otherwise. But overall, the feedback that we've gotten has always been very, very supportive from all aspects, from normal average people to hackers to different cops and whatnot. It's always pretty good. We're very serious about our ethical procedures and processes as far as the organization goes, and we try our very best to instill that into all of our members.
So at this point, you're pretty much like any kind of white hat security professional, to put it in that kind of context.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so for people that are interested in getting into the hobby of lockpicking, what's a good place to start?
Well, there's quite a few different forums and different guides and whatnot you can find online. We do have links to quite a few different resources on our US website, tool.us. It's tool with 3 O's.us. And in our resources area, we have links to the guide formerly known as the MIT Guide to Lockpicking. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. It has a lot of pertinent information in there. We also have links to forums and Deviant Olav's website about lockpicking and some different starting points there for you.
Well, that's really, really interesting, and thank you so much for being here. Greatly appreciate it. And thanks for my lockpicking kit, too.
Absolutely. Not a problem at all.
So, thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so that's pretty much going to wrap up, finally, this episode of the ShmooCon special, Hak5. Thanks for surviving all the way through. Yeah, on aisle 3.
We got a bunch of people that we need to thank real quick for making this happen. Oh, yeah. First of all, Rodney and Mubix for hooking us up with the press passes, getting the podcast meetup thing going on.
Yeah, just getting the ball rolling with that. And also, Martin McKee was part of that.
Yeah, as well as paul.com.com. And Cyberspeak and Splitcast. In fact, you were just recently on a recent episode of Cyberspeak, and we were both
on their ShmooCon special.
Yes,
we're seeing a trend here.
It's meta. Yeah, and then we were on paul.com.com, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. Those guys
gave us stickers.
Yes, Hack Naked stickers. Check them out. It's a really good security podcast. It's really worth listening to. Really entertaining.
Type paul.com into your browser and hit Control-Enter.
Yes, that's.
Firefox
you see it right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Haven't used that one in a while. We're going to be moving to a dedicated server. The the forums and the site and the wiki. That's all going.
Growing. Woohoo! So you may notice some 404s. Was the transition? Just email us if you find some bad links.
If anything's
standard fare.
Yeah. If anything's horribly broken, let us know. Also,
we'll get the hamsters to start spinning faster.
A little bit faster. We'll give them some steroids. Also, we're on the latest episode of Leet by Math Club. You can check out the clip here in just a second.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and roll a clip.
That's it, we're done. We've established a connection to Dragorovich's BlackBerry and its accompanying systems.
So do we know where Chris is? No, that's on a separate system. Listen, whoever programmed this thing is probably Leet themselves. It's Rot 13.
So, what do we have to go on then?
Well, we can't exactly find out where he is as it stands, but we can use the E911 GPS to figure out where Dragorovich is, and hopefully that'll give us a lead.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Could we act any worse?
Yeah, we suck.
Yeah, you think after doing a few podcast thingies...
We might get kind of used to being in front of the camera.
No, not so much.
All right, and... I think about the last thing.
Oh, right before that, we need to thank our awesome host, DreamHost, who has been supporting us from the beginning with the one-click installs and the 2 terabytes of transfers and 100 gigs of storage. And if you're looking for web space and it looks like something that you might be interested in, we've got a coupon code that'll save you $25 on your purchase. That's coupon code HAK, the number 5. When you check out, that supports the show, and we think that's awesome that you're supporting us.
And we greatly appreciate it. Okay, now, Hak5 Radio.
Yes.
Hak5 Radio, some of you are familiar with it, some of you aren't. Well, Hak5 Radio is not owned or operated by us, but it was the official radio of Hak5.
We're friends!
Yay! Hak5 Radio is no more.
No, it's merged.
Well,
they get bigger.
I was getting to that.
Okay.
Hak5 Radio no longer exists. All the resources of Hak5 Radio, including its owner, have merged with KGMRradio.com. I had to think about it for a second.
So no more questions with the trademarking stuff?
No. No, it's going to be completely legitimate according to the new royalty laws for online radio.
Not the royalties.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's going to be completely legal. That's why it's been done, so we can kind of share resources and everything. So check it out, kgmrradio.com.
And I'm sure the Hak5radio.com will point there as well.
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure.
Get on that, Mubix. Poor guy, he's sitting there taking notes while he watches the show. What do I have to do next?
Yeah.
Damn it. Anyway, thank you so much, Mubix, for the awesome meetup.
Mubix and Tigger. Tigger's the owner of KGMR.
He's been doing some great work for us. He'll be on the next episode, hopefully. We've got some clips. Need to get out of the way. Which brings us to the next episode and all the fun stuff with that. As you know, if you've been watching through the first season, we do 10 months on and 2 months off for the sanity, which we're slowly losing. And that means that the next episode, 2x10, will be the last one for a little bit, and then we will come back again.
It's the season finale?
Yeah.
August 5th is the return date?
Yes, 3x01, so May 5th. That's a Saturday.
It's Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, is it really?
Cinco de Mayo means 5th of May.
Okay, yeah.
The big Mexican holiday?
Yeah, and...
Get the hamster going a little faster. But anyway, long story short, Cinco de Mayo falls on a Saturday.
Yes. Season finale, very huge party up here at the new Techno Lust House or whatever. And
the House of Techno Lust.
The Hack House or whatever you want to call it. Studio B. And we are going to be throwing a huge bash on opening night, which won't be late like this episode is. Sorry. And we kind of lost the guest list. So if you're on it, just email me. If you're not, and you're not
like to be,
and you'd like to be, if you're in the Williamsburg, Richmond, Newport greater area.
Greater Hampton Roads area.
If you're down with the 23188,
it's the 757 numbskull.
23188 is our zip code.
Yeah, but you got to be down with the 757.
Yeah, I'm really white. Sorry. Yeah. They white balance on my arm, actually. Anyway, we're throwing a huge party. Come on down. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll probably webcast it as well or something.
Yeah, there'll be some kind of live stream, so a bunch of drunk SOBs can be fun.
Yes, and I guess if that's it. Oh, standard fare. Forums, IRC.
Forums, IRC, IRC.hak5.org, show notes on the wiki, hak5.org/wiki.
All the pertinent information is at the bottom of the screen and the little place where you downloaded this if you weren't on iTunes.
So thank you for supporting, thank you for watching.
And from the Red Couch here at the Hack House, we remind you, trust your technolust.
Ramble anymore. That's fine.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. What was I talking about again? I'm going to start this over. So that just about wraps up this episode of Hak5.
Hi, Kirby.
Hello.
Can you hear me, Thweetums?
Yeah, get the cat butt out of there. Kirby, you're putting your butt in the shot. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I was trying to roll with it, but I knew it was going to be bad.
All right, now we're good. We'll save it for the outtake. Come on. These guys got to get back to the hack.
This month's episode is a special, hence it's really
Riding
long.
The short bus.
Hi, I'm Aaron from Hak5.
I'll go grab Allie, mic her up for last month's trivia. I forget what we're doing right there. And then just saying after that, Billy Hoffman. My face, man. It's music video time.
Okay, so this just about wraps everything up.
Such a punk.
Yo, ShmooCon, DC, having fun.
Oh, cool! That guy's wearing our T-shirt.
Yeah, please don't use that here.
Okay, so that just about wraps. I was like, is he?
Wow, it's like season 1 again.